Elijah Cartwright's hammer fell silent the moment he heard it. 3 desperate knocks, cutting through the Wyoming blizzard like a death rattle. He hadn't opened that door for another soul in 3 years, not since they carried Margaret out in a pine box. But something in those knocks spoke of the kind of desperation that didn't ask permission. When he unlatched the bolt, a woman collapsed into his arms, 3 half-frozen children clinging to her skirts. Her lips formed 2 words before consciousness left her: "Please, hide us." Before we begin, if you're drawn to stories of second chances and frontier redemption, subscribe and stay until the end. I promise you won't regret it. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's step back to where it all began. The forge had been cold for 2 days. Elijah Cartwright stood in the doorway of his blacksmith shop, watching the December wind strip the last leaves from the cottonwoods. His hands, scarred and calloused from 20 years at the anvil, hung useless at his sides. There was no work. The town of Bitterroot Crossing had 3 other smiths, now younger men with steadier hands and no ghosts lingering in their eyes. He'd stopped taking orders 6 months back. Just stopped. Didn't seem worth the effort anymore. The bell above his door hadn't rung since September. Eli. He turned. Martha Cooper stood on the boardwalk, a basket covered in gingham cloth tucked under her arm. The general store owner had a face like weathered leather and a heart that refused to quit on people. "Brought you some bread," she said, not asking permission before stepping inside. "And don't you dare tell me you've got plenty. I know what your pantry looks like." "Martha, hush." She set the basket on his workbench, pushing aside the tools he hadn't touched in weeks. "You planning to starve yourself quiet-like, or you gonna make folks drag you back to the living?" Elijah's jaw tightened. "I'm not asking for charity." "Good, because I'm not offering it. I'm offering bread. There's a difference." She fixed him with a look that had cowed drunks and cheats for 30 years. "Margaret wouldn't want this. You know she wouldn't." The name landed like a fist to his sternum. 3 years gone, and it still knocked the air from his lungs. "What Margaret wanted don't matter anymore," he said, voice rough. "She's not here to want anything." Martha's expression softened just slightly. "No, but you are. And winter's coming hard. I need you to shoe Davy's team before the pass closes. You gonna do it, or do I tell him to ride to Lewiston?" Elijah looked at his forge, cold and dark. Then at Martha, waiting with the patience of someone who knew exactly how stubborn he could be. "I'll do it," he said finally. "Good. He'll be by Thursday." She turned to leave, then paused. "And Eli, eat the damn bread." The door closed behind her, leaving him alone again. He unwrapped the cloth. The bread was still warm, crusted with seeds, the kind Margaret used to make on Sundays. The smell hit him hard, yeast and salt and memory. He broke off a piece, chewed mechanically, tasted nothing. The blizzard came that night. It started as flurries, gentle and deceptive, the kind that made you think maybe winter would be kind this year. By midnight, the wind was howling like something feral, rattling the windows, piling snow against the doors, in drifts that climbed toward the eaves. Elijah sat by the fire, in the room behind the shop, the one he'd built for Margaret when they married. He'd carved every beam, fitted every joint, imagining children's laughter filling the space. Now it was just him and the silence thick as smoke. He'd just set down his cup when he heard it. 3 knocks. Deliberate. Desperate. He froze. Nobody traveled in weather like this. Nobody sane anyway. The knocks came again, weaker this time. Elijah crossed the room in 4 strides and threw the bolt. The door swung inward, and she fell straight into his chest, her weight nearly buckling his knees. Behind her, 3 children stumbled across the threshold, their faces blue-white eyes glazed with cold. "Please," the woman gasped, fingers clutching his shirt. "Please, hide us." Then she went limp. Elijah caught her before she hit the floor. his arms remembering the weight of a woman, even as his mind struggled to catch up. The children stood frozen in the doorway, snow swirling around them like they'd been conjured from the storm itself. "Get inside," he barked. "Now!" The oldest boy, maybe 8, grabbed the 2 smaller ones and dragged them in. Elijah kicked the door shut, the wind screaming its protest. He laid the woman on the rug near the fire, her clothes soaked through, lips tinged blue. The children huddled together, shaking so hard their teeth clattered. "Can you hear me?" Elijah shook her gently. No response. He pressed his fingers to her throat, pulse threadbare but present. All right, stay with me." He moved fast, muscle memory from field hospitals during the war kicking in. Grabbed every blanket he owned, stripped the woman's wet coat, wrapped her tight. The children watched him with wide, terrified eyes. "You," he pointed at the oldest boy. "What's your name?" Finn. The word came through chattering teeth. "Finn, good. I need you to be strong right now. Can you do that?" The boy nodded, chin trembling. "Help your brother and sister out of those wet clothes. There's shirts in that trunk, use those. Move." Finn obeyed, his small hands shaking as he unbuttoned his siblings' coats. The middle child, a boy with dark hair, stared at Elijah like he was weighing whether to run. The smallest, a girl, no more than 4, clutched a rag doll and whimpered. Elijah fed the fire until it roared, then filled a pot with snow from outside to melt. He checked the woman again, still unconscious, but breathing steadier now. Her face, now that he could see it properly, was sharp with hunger and exhaustion. Pretty in the way frontier women were, hard-earned and honest. He guessed her age at 30-something. Younger than him, older than hope. "Is she going to die?" Elijah turned. Finn stood behind him, drowning in one of Elijah's old work shirts, his eyes too old for his face. "No," Elijah said firmly. "She's going to be fine. You all are." "How do you know?" "Because I said so." He handed the boy a cup of warm water. "Drink this, slow. Then help the others." Finn took the cup with both hands, sipped carefully. "The man at the last town said we wouldn't make it. Said winter eats families like ours." Elijah's jaw clenched. "What man?" "The one who wouldn't let us stay in his barn. He said Mama was—" Finn's voice cracked. "He said bad words about her." Something cold settled in Elijah's gut, colder than the storm outside. He looked at the woman on his floor, at the children wearing his dead wife's shirts, and felt something he thought had died with Margaret stir in his chest. Anger. Purpose. "Listen to me." He crouched to Finn's level. "I don't know what you've been through, but you're safe now. You hear me, safe." Finn's eyes filled. "Promise." Elijah had learned not to make promises. Promises were for men who still believed the world was fair. But looking at this boy, this small, terrified boy, who'd probably watched his mother nearly die a dozen times over, he couldn't stop himself. "Promise." The woman woke an hour before dawn. Elijah was adding wood to the fire when he heard her gasp, sharp and panicked. He turned to find her bolt-upright eyes, wild hands searching. "The children, right here." Elijah gestured to the corner, where all 3 slept in a pile of blankets, their breathing soft and even. "They're fine. You're fine." She stared at them, counting silently. 1, 2, 3, then sagged with relief so profound, it looked painful. Her hands came up to cover her face, and her shoulders shook. Elijah looked away, giving her the dignity of private grief. When she finally lowered her hands, her eyes were dry, but rimmed red. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know how to—" "Don't." He poured coffee from the pot, handed her a cup. "Just drink." She took it, fingers trembling, sipped once, then again. "How long was I?" "Few hours. You collapsed when you came in, said something about hiding." Her whole body went rigid. The cup stopped halfway to her lips. "Who are you hiding from?" Elijah asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted to the children, lingered there, like she was memorizing them. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat, practiced. "My husband." Elijah absorbed that. "He hurt you?" "No." She took another sip, buying time. "Not with his hands anyway." "But he's looking." "Yes. And if he finds you—" Her eyes met his, and he saw it, the calculation, the fear, the tired resignation of someone who'd learned that hope was expensive. "He'll take them. The children. He has legal claim." "Legal claim doesn't mean right claim." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You sound like someone who still believes in justice." "I sound like someone who knows the difference between law and decency." Elijah refilled his own cup, settled into the chair across from her. "What's your name?" A pause. "Clara. Clara Hensley." "Elijah Cartwright. This is my shop. My home." "I'm sorry for—" "Stop apologizing. You're not the first person to knock on that door desperate. You won't be the last." He studied her over the rim of his cup. "Where were you heading?" "Montana City. I have a cousin there." "Or, I thought I did. Got a letter 2 weeks ago saying she moved south. No forwarding address." Clara's voice cracked slightly. "We've been walking since the wagon broke outside of Bitter Ridge. That was, God, 6 days ago. 7. In this cold, with 3 children." "I didn't have a choice." Elijah believed her. He'd seen enough hard luck to recognize when someone was out of options. "The boy Finn, he said a man turned you away, spoke cruel about you." Clara's jaw tightened. "The world's full of men like that. They see a woman alone and assume she's fair game for judgment. Or worse. Anyone try worse." Her silence was answer enough. Elijah felt that cold anger again, the kind that didn't burn hot, but settled deep and patient. He'd felt it during the war, watching good men die for bad reasons. Thought he'd left it buried with his uniform. Apparently not. "You can stay," he said. Clara's head snapped up. "What? Until the storm passes. Until you figure out your next move. I've got space, got food enough for a few more mouths." He gestured around the sparse room. "It's not much, but it's warm and it's safe." "I can't." "You can. And you will. For them." He nodded toward the children. "They need rest, real rest. And you need time to heal." "I don't need—" "Ma'am." Elijah's voice went quiet, the kind of quiet that carried weight. "I've seen what happens to women and children who go back out into winter without a plan. It doesn't end well. Now I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just asking you to stay alive long enough to figure out what comes next." Clara stared at him, searching his face for something deception. Ulterior motive, the catch. He let her look. Had nothing to hide. Finally, she nodded. 3 days. Until the road clears. 3 days. Elijah agreed, knowing it was a lie they both needed. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, the fire crackled. And for the first time in 3 years, Elijah Cartwright's home held something other than ghosts. By morning, the snow had stopped. Elijah woke to the smell of something cooking bread, real bread and coffee, stronger than what he'd been making. He sat up disoriented, then remembered. Clara. He found her in the kitchen area, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair tied back, working dough like she'd been born to it. The children sat at the table watching her with the kind of quiet focus that spoke of hard-learned patience. "You didn't have to do that," Elijah said from the doorway. Clara didn't look up. "I know, but I needed to do something useful. Sitting still makes me nervous." "Fair enough." She shaped the dough into loaves, set them near the fire to rise. Her movements were efficient, practiced the muscle memory of a woman who'd fed people in harder circumstances than this. Finn noticed him first. "Mr. Cartwright." "Just Eli's fine." "Eli." The boy tested the name. "Mama says we have to earn our keep. What can I do?" Elijah considered him. 8 years old, skinny as a post, but with steady eyes. You know how to split kindling. Finn nodded eagerly. Good. There's an axe in the shed, small one. Stacks out back. Fill the box by the door and we'll call it square. The boy was up and moving before Elijah finished speaking, grateful for purpose. The middle child Theo, Clara called him, watched his brother go, then looked at Elijah with cautious calculation. What about me? How old are you? 6. Strong for 6. Theo straightened. Strong enough. All right. See those tools on the bench. They need cleaning. Oil's in the blue tin. Think you can handle that? Theo slid off the chair without a word, already moving toward the workbench, like he was afraid the offer might evaporate. That left the girl. Sadie. She sat with her doll in her lap, humming something tuneless and soft, her eyes tracking her mother's every move. What about Sadie? Clara asked quietly. She's 4. Elijah finished. She doesn't need to earn anything. Let her be a child. Something shifted in Clara's expression. Surprise maybe, or relief. She went back to kneading, but her shoulders had loosened slightly. You're good with them, she said after a moment. Had practice, long time ago. He poured himself coffee, didn't elaborate. You have children. No. The word came out harder than he meant. He softened it. My wife and I, we tried. Didn't work out. Clara glanced at him, understanding passing unspoken between them. I'm sorry. Don't be. Life's full of things that don't work out. You keep moving anyway. Is that what you've been doing moving forward? Elijah looked at his cold forge, at the tools he hadn't touched in months, at the room that still smelled like Margaret's lavender soap, even though it had been 3 years. Working on it, he said. Clara smiled, small and sad. Me too. The day passed in careful rhythms. Finn chopped kindling with more enthusiasm than skill, and Elijah showed him how to angle the blade, how to read the grain. The boy absorbed every word like scripture, asking questions faster than Elijah could answer them. Why's the wood split easier when it's cold? Moisture's frozen, makes it brittle. And why do you stack it bark side up? Sheds water better, keeps it dry longer. And why? Lord above, boy, do you ever run out of questions? Finn grinned, gap-toothed and unrepentant. Mama says curiosity's the only thing that don't cost money. Elijah huffed something that might have been a laugh. Your mama's a smart woman. Theo worked in silence, cleaning each tool with meticulous care, checking with Elijah every few minutes to make sure he was doing it right. The boy reminded Elijah of himself at that age, watchful, wary, waiting for the world to prove it couldn't be trusted. Sadie stayed close to Clara, helping in the way 4-year-olds helped, which was to say not much, but with tremendous sincerity. She narrated everything. Sadie's helping Mama. Sadie's a good helper. Mama says Sadie's the best helper. You are, sweetheart, Clara murmured, brushing flour from the girl's hair. Sadie thinks Mr. Eli is nice, not scary like the other man's. Elijah caught Clara's eye across the room. She gave him a look that was half apology, half question. Other men weren't nice, he asked carefully. Sadie shook her head, solemn. They yelled, called Mama bad names. One man tried to touch her, but Finn bit him. Elijah's hand stilled on the axe handle. Finn bit him. Hard. Clara's voice was tight. Drew blood. The man wanted to press charges, but his wife saw the whole thing. Told him if he made a fuss, she'd tell the sheriff what he'd tried to do first. Good woman. Rare woman. Clara shaped the last loaf, set it aside. Most people just watched, or pretended they didn't see. Elijah knew that dance. The way communities closed ranks against outsiders, especially women without men to vouch for them. He'd seen it happen to Margaret's sister after her husband died, the way the town suddenly remembered debts that didn't exist, found reasons to turn her away from work. She'd left for California eventually, never wrote back. Well, Elijah said, you won't find that here. Clara looked at him, weighing the words against everything she'd learned about the world. "We'll see." That night, after the children were asleep and the bread was baked and the fire burned low, Clara spoke. "I need to tell you something." Elijah looked up from the harness he was mending. "All right." She sat across from him, hands folded tight in her lap. "My husband Jacob, he's not a violent man. That's what makes it worse somehow. If he hit me, people would understand why I left. But he's charming. Everyone loves him. When I try to explain what he did, how he abandoned us, how he left us with nothing, people look at me like I'm exaggerating, like I'm hysterical. I'm not people." "No." She met his eyes. "You're not. That's why I'm telling you. Jacob will come looking, eventually. And when he does, he'll have a story. A good one. About how his poor wife ran off with the children, how he's been searching desperately, how he just wants his family back. And the truth is, he left us at a way station with $10 and a promise to come back with supplies. That was 2 months ago. We waited 3 weeks before I accepted he wasn't coming." Her voice didn't waver, but her knuckles went white. "We had to walk to the next town, 40 miles. Finn carried Sadi most of the way because I couldn't do it anymore. We slept in a church basement until the pastor's wife decided we were trouble. After that, it was Barnes and Charity and—" She stopped, breathed, continued. "People helped when they could. But winter came and Charity has limits. I tried to find work, but no one hires a woman with 3 small children. They think you'll steal or you're desperate enough to—" She didn't finish that sentence. Didn't need to. Elijah set down the harness. "Why's he looking now if he left you? Why come back? Because he needs us. Or the appearance of us anyway. Jacob's a gambler, and he's good at it when he wants to be. But he got in deep with someone he shouldn't have. Now he needs to look respectable family man, settled down, ready to invest in some scheme or another. That's how he works. The Loving Father Act will open doors. Doors that lead to money. Always money." Clara's smile was bitter. "He'll promise to be better, swear he's changed. And people will believe him because he's good at making people believe." "I won't?" She looked at him surprised. "You haven't even met him." "Don't need to. I know the type. Seen men like that all through the war, officers who'd send soldiers to die then weep at the funerals like they gave a damn. Liars who believe their own lies." Elijah leaned forward. "If he shows up here, he'll leave empty-handed." "You can't promise that. The law isn't here right now. I am. And this is my property. He wants to take you or those children, he'll have to go through me first." Clara's breath hitched. Why would you do that for strangers?" Elijah didn't have a good answer. Didn't have one that made sense anyway. All he knew was that when he looked at those 3 children sleeping in his dead wife's blankets, he felt something he thought had burned out with the forge. He felt needed. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone," he said finally. "Or maybe I just don't like bullies. Either way, the answer's the same. You stay as long as you need. And if Jacob shows up, when he shows up, we'll handle it." Clara studied him in the firelight, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. "Thank you, Eli. Don't thank me yet. Winter's long, and trouble has a way of finding what it's looking for." "I know." She stood, moved toward the corner where her children slept, then paused. "For what it's worth, I think Margaret was lucky to have had you." The words hit him sideways, unexpected and sharp. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Just watched as Clara curled up beside her children, her arm draped over all 3, protecting them even in sleep. Outside, the wind picked up again. But inside, the fire held. And Elijah Cartwright, for the first time in 3 years, thought, maybe, just maybe, he could learn to tend something other than grief. 3 days became a week. The storm came and went in waves, never quite clearing enough for travel. Clara didn't push to leave, and Elijah didn't push her to go. They fell into a rhythm, careful and unspoken. her handling the cooking and mending him, teaching the boys the basics of metalwork. Sadie narrating it all like she was composing an epic. Mr. Eli's showing Finn how to make horseshoes. Finn's very careful. Theo's watching. Theo's always watching. It was true. Theo never asked questions like his brother, but he saw everything. Elijah caught him studying the way he moved, the way he spoke to Clara, the way he handled tools. Testing. Measuring. Smart boy. Hard boy. On the 8th day, Martha Cooper came knocking. "Well," she said, taking in the scene, Clara at the stove, children underfoot, Elijah at the workbench with a half-shod horse outside. "Look at this." "Martha." Elijah didn't look up from his work. "Davy's team's ready. Tell him to come by tomorrow." "I will." She stepped fully inside, set a basket on the table. "Brought extra flour. Heard you had company." Clara tensed. "Ma'am, I can explain." "Nothing to explain, honey. Whole town's talking about how Eli here took in a family during the storm. Most folks think it's Christian charity. A few think it's something else." Martha's gaze was sharp. "I'm here to find out which." "It's neither," Elijah said flatly. "It's just what any decent person would do." "Uh-huh." Martha turned to Clara. "What's your name, dear?" "Clara Hensley." "Where you from?" "East, Kansas City originally." "And where's Mr. Hensley?" The question hung there, waited. Clara's chin lifted. "Gone." "Gone dead or gone? Does it matter?" Martha smiled, and it wasn't kind. "Might, depending on who's asking and why." She pulled out a chair, sat without invitation. "See, Bitterroot Crossing's a small town. We take care of our own. But we're also not fools. So I'm going to ask you straight. Are you running from the law?" "No." "Are you running from a man?" Clara's jaw tightened. "Yes." "Is he the father of these children?" "He is." Martha nodded slowly. "And does he know where you are?" "Not yet, but he will eventually." "When he finds you, what then?" Clara glanced at the children, then back at Martha. "Then I'll do whatever I have to do to keep them safe." Martha held her gaze for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. "Good answer." She stood, collected her basket. "I'll tell folks you're Eli's cousin from Kansas City. Widowed, 3 kids, came west for a fresh start. That'll satisfy the curious and give the gossips something harmless to chew on." "Why would you do that?" Clara asked. "Because Eli's good people, and if he's willing to help you, that's good enough for me." Martha moved toward the door, paused. "But hear me clear, if trouble comes looking, don't let it find our town. You understand?" "I understand." "Good." Martha nodded to Elijah. "Davy's tomorrow. And Eli, don't let this one slip away. You've been dead long enough." She left the door swinging shut behind her. Clara turned to Elijah, eyes wide. "Did she just—" "Yep." "Does she think we're—" "Yep." "Are you going to correct her?" Elijah went back to his work, hiding a smile. "Don't see the point. Folks believe what they want to believe." Clara opened her mouth, closed it. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a real laugh, startled and bright. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less hunted. Elijah found himself staring. "What?" she asked, catching his look. "Nothing, just, you should laugh more often." Her smile faded, but not all the way. "Haven't had much reason to lately." "Well, maybe that'll change." Their eyes held. Something passed between them, fragile and new, like the first thaw after a long winter. Then Finn burst through the door, Theo right behind him, both boys shouting about tracks they'd found in the snow wolf, maybe, or dog, and the moment broke. But it didn't disappear. It just waited. The wolf tracks turned out to be a stray dog, half-starved and limping. Finn found it trying to dig under the woodpile, ribs showing through matted fur, like piano keys. "Can we keep him?" The boy stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around the trembling animal, like he'd fight anyone who tried to take it. Clara looked at Elijah, clearly expecting him to say no. He should say no. They already had 4 extra mouths to feed, and a dog was just one more problem. But Finn's eyes held that particular brightness of a child who'd been denied too many times, who'd learned to expect disappointment, but hadn't quite stopped hoping. "He stays outside," Elijah said, "and you're responsible for feeding him. Deal. Deal." Finn was already halfway out the door, Theo trailing behind both boys, chattering about names. "You didn't have to do that," Clara said quietly. "I know. They're going to get attached. Already are." Elijah pulled on his coat. "I'll be in town for a few hours. Davies needs his team, and Martha mentioned the Reverend wants to talk about the church bell." Clara's hands stilled in the dishwater. "Should I stay inside while you're gone?" The question carried weight. She was asking if it was safe, if people would talk, if trouble might come calling while he was away. "No," Elijah said firmly. "This is your home now, same as mine. You go where you please, do what you need. Anyone has a problem with it, they can take it up with me." Her shoulders straightened slightly. "All right." He was halfway to the door when she spoke again. "Eli." He turned. "Thank you. For all of it." He nodded, not trusting himself to say more, and stepped out into the cold. The ride into Bitterroot Crossing took 20 minutes on a good day. Today, with snow still packed on the trail, it took closer to 40. Elijah didn't mind. Gave him time to think, to sort through the strange newness of having people in his house again. The town appeared gradually through the trees, a main street lined with false front buildings, smoke rising from a dozen chimneys, the church steeple pointing toward a sky the color of old pewter. It wasn't much, but it was home. Had been for 15 years. He left Davies' team at the livery, collected his payment, and headed for the general store. Martha was behind the counter, weighing out sugar for Mrs. Henderson, who stopped talking the moment Elijah walked in. "Morning," he said, tipping his hat. "Mr. Cartwright." Mrs. Henderson's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I hear you've taken in guests." "Have." "How charitable." She smiled, showing too many teeth. "Of course people do wonder about the propriety of a single man housing a woman and her children, without supervision." Martha's hand stilled on the scale. "Emily Henderson, if you've got something to say it plain." "I'm simply concerned for the woman's reputation, and Mr. Cartwright's naturally." "Naturally." Martha dumped the sugar into a bag with more force than necessary. "Funny how your concern only shows up when there's gossip to spread." Mrs. Henderson's smile tightened. "Well, I'm sure the Reverend will have thoughts on the matter." She swept out nose high, leaving silence in her wake. "Don't pay her any mind," Martha said. "She's been bitter since her daughter ran off with that cattle buyer." "She's not wrong, though." Elijah leaned against the counter. "People will talk. People always talk. Question is, do you care? Did he?" 3 years ago, he would have bent himself into shapes to avoid giving the town any reason to judge him. But 3 years of grief had burned away most of his concern for other people's opinions. "No," he said. "I don't." "Good. Then ignore them and live your life." Martha pushed a wrapped package across the counter. "Penny candy for the children. Don't tell me you didn't come in here planning to buy some." He hadn't. But now that she mentioned it, "How much?" "On the house. Consider it a welcome gift." She lowered her voice. "How's she doing, Clara?" "Better. Eating more. The boys are coming around." "And you?" Elijah looked at her. "What about me?" "You're smiling again. Didn't think I'd see that." Was he? He touched his face absently, surprised to find it true. When had that started? "She's easy to be around," he said carefully. "The kids, too. It's different, having people there. Different good or different bad?" "Don't know yet." Martha studied him with the particular intensity of someone who'd known him since he was green and stupid. Margaret would have liked her. The words should have hurt, should have felt like betrayal. Instead, they settled warm in his chest, like permission he hadn't known he needed. "Yeah," he said softly. "She would have." The church bell conversation with Reverend Gray took less time than expected. The bell needed a new clapper, which Elijah could forge easily enough. They agreed on price and timeline, and the Reverend walked him to the door. "I heard about your house guests," Gray said, not unkindly. The woman and her children. Here it comes, Elijah thought. The lecture about propriety and sin. But Gray surprised him. "It's good," the Reverend said. "What you're doing. Taking them in. That's what we're called to do. Shelter the stranger, feed the hungry. I just wanted you to know I'll make it clear from the pulpit on Sunday. Anyone has a problem with Christian charity, they can take it up with the Lord." Elijah blinked. "I appreciate that. Don't mention it. And bring them to service if they're comfortable. Let people see they're under your protection. Might quiet some of the wagging tongues. I'll ask." He rode back slower than necessary, turning the day over in his mind. People's reactions had surprised him, some kind, some suspicious, none openly hostile. Maybe Martha was right. Maybe the town would accept Clara and the children if he made it clear they belonged. The question was, did they want to belong? Clara had talked about leaving once the weather cleared, about finding her cousin, about starting fresh somewhere. No one knew her story. But winter was settling in hard, and Montana City was a long way off. And if he was being honest with himself, which he tried to be most days, he wasn't ready for them to leave. Not yet. When he got back, the house smelled like stew and fresh bread. Clara was at the stove, hair escaping its pins, cheeks flushed from the heat. The boys were out back with the dog, their laughter carrying through the walls. Sadie sat at the table, carefully arranging dried beans into patterns. "You're back," Clara said, glancing over her shoulder. "How was town?" "Interesting." He set the candy on the table. "For the kids." Sadie's eyes went wide. "Candy?" "Just a bit. After supper." The girl scrambled down and ran outside, shouting for her brothers. Clara watched her go, then turned to Elijah with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You keep doing things like that," she said. "Like what?" "Kind things, thoughtful things, things you don't have to do." He shrugged, uncomfortable. "It's just candy." "No, it's not. It's paying attention. It's seeing what they need before they ask." She wiped her hands on her apron. "They're starting to trust you. You know that, right? Is that bad?" "I don't know. Maybe." She turned back to the stew, stirring slow. "What happens when we leave? When they have to say goodbye to the first stable thing they've known in months? Then don't leave." The words hung there, too big for the space between them. Clara's spoon stilled. "Eli, I'm not proposing," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just saying, winter's long, spring's a ways off. You could stay, figure things out from here instead of on the road. And when Jacob comes, if he comes, we handle it, together." She turned to face him fully. "You keep saying that. We. Like you're already part of this. Aren't I?" The question lay bare between them. Clara searched his face, looking for something, doubt maybe, or the inevitable moment when his kindness would reveal its price. She wouldn't find it. Elijah had learned the hard way that some things you gave freely or not at all. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of staying, of leaving, of what happens if I let them get comfortable here and then everything falls apart." "Everything might fall apart anyway. That's life." He stepped closer, not touching, but near enough that she'd feel it. "But it might not. Might turn into something good. Won't know unless you try. And if I try and it goes wrong, if Jacob shows up with the law and takes them, then I'll ride to every courthouse between here and Kansas City if I have to. I'll testify. I'll bring witnesses. I'll—" He stopped, realizing how much he meant it, how far he'd go. Clara saw it too. Her eyes filled, though no tears fell. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care this much?" Elijah thought about Margaret, about the baby they'd lost, about the 3 years he'd spent believing his chance at family had died with them. He thought about Finn's questions, and Theo's careful trust, and Sadi's small hand in his when they walked to the barn. "Because they're here," he said simply. "And I'm tired of letting good things slip away because I'm afraid of losing them." Clara's breath hitched. For a moment, he thought she might cry. Instead, she reached out and took his hand, squeezed once, then let go. "All right," she said. "We'll stay. Through winter, maybe longer. We'll see." It wasn't a promise, but it was enough. That evening, after supper and candy and the boys teaching the dog to sit, Elijah sat by the fire with his carving knife. The wood in his hands was starting to look like something a fox maybe, or a cat. He wasn't sure yet. Clara joined him, bringing her mending. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. Inside, warmth held. "Eli." Clara's voice was soft. What was she like, Margaret? He didn't answer right away. Didn't know if he could. But then the words came slow and careful, like water finding its path after a long drought. Strong. Not loud about it, but you felt it. She could outwork most men I knew, and she'd do it smiling. He paused, remembering. She laughed at everything, bad jokes, stupid accidents, me trying to dance. Had this way of finding joy in small things, a good sunrise, fresh bread, the way snow looked on pine branches. She sounds wonderful. She was. He turned the wood in his hands. She wanted children so badly it scared me sometimes. We tried for years, got close once, but he didn't finish. Didn't need to. I'm sorry. Me too. He looked at Clara then. But I think she'd be glad they're here. The kids. She always said this house was too quiet for just 2 people. And now it's loud. Now it's loud. He agreed, and found himself smiling. Clara returned to her mending, but after a moment she spoke again. Jacob wasn't always bad. That's what makes it hard to explain. When we met, he was charming and funny and full of plans. Big plans. We were going to own land, build something real. He had this way of making you believe anything was possible. What changed? Nothing changed. That was the problem. The plans never became real. He'd start something, lose interest, move on to the next thing. Always chasing the next opportunity, the next big score. Her needle moved steadily through the fabric. After Finn was born, I thought he'd settle. But he just got worse. Started gambling to make up for what we didn't have. Lost more than he won. And the children. He loved them, in his way. But his love was conditional, convenient. When they were sweet and well-behaved, he'd play the doting father. But the moment they needed something, really needed something, he'd disappear. Said it was my job to handle that. Elijah's jaw tightened. And when you ran out of money, he left us at that way station with $10 and a story about coming back with supplies. Her voice went flat. I knew. The moment he rode away, I knew he wasn't coming back. But I waited anyway, because what else could I do? I had 3 children and no way to feed them. You could have stayed, found work. In a way, station town with 3 kids. She laughed bitter. I tried. The owner let me clean rooms for meals, but he made it clear that arrangement wouldn't last. And his son... She stopped, her expression darkening. His son what? He had ideas about how I could earn our keep. I packed up that night and walked. Elijah felt that cold anger again, the kind that lived in his bones. If I ever meet this Jacob of yours, you'll be civil, Clara interrupted firmly. Because losing your temper is what he wants. He's good at making people lose control, then playing the victim. That's how he wins. I don't lose control. Everyone loses control eventually. Jacob just knows how to wait for it. They fell silent again, but it was heavier now, weighted with the knowledge that the past wasn't done with them yet. Sadie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, I can't sleep. The wind's too loud." Clara set aside her mending. "Come here, baby." The girl climbed into her mother's lap, tucking her head under Clara's chin. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out. Elijah watched them, this small tableau of trust and safety, and felt something shift in his chest. Not love, not yet too soon for that, but the beginning of it. The possibility. "She's getting attached to you," Clara said quietly. "They all are." "Is that bad?" "I don't know. Ask me again in 6 months." "All right, I will." The days blurred into weeks. Christmas came and went, marked by a small tree and handmade gifts, wooden toys from Elijah, mittens from Clara, drawings from the children. It was modest, simple, and somehow more meaningful than any holiday Elijah could remember. Finn and Theo had taken to following him everywhere, absorbing knowledge like dry ground, soaking up rain. He taught them to read metal by its color, to judge temperature by sight, to shape iron with patience and respect. "Why do you heat it so slow?" Finn asked one morning, watching Elijah work the forge. "Because metal's like people. Rush it and it breaks. Give it time and it becomes something stronger." Theo, standing back as always, spoke up. "Is that what you're doing with us? Giving us time?" The question was too adult for a 6-year-old born from too much watching, too much understanding. Elijah set down his hammer. "I'm giving you space to heal. There's a difference." "But you're waiting for something," Theo pressed. "You're always watching Mama, waiting." "Theo." Clara's voice came from the doorway, gentle but firm. "That's enough." The boy flushed and retreated. Finn followed, leaving Clara and Elijah alone in the workshop. "I'm sorry," she said. "He's too observant for his own good." "He's not wrong, though." Clara stepped closer, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. "What are you waiting for, Eli?" "I don't know. Permission, maybe. Or proof that this is real, that it's not just convenience or desperation making you stay. And if it is convenience, then that's honest, and I can work with honest." He turned to face her fully. "But I think it's more than that. For both of us." She didn't confirm or deny it. Just looked at him with those clear, assessing eyes that saw too much. "The Reverend invited us to Sunday service," he said, changing the subject. "Thought it might be good. Let people see you're part of the community." "Am I part of the community?" "If you want to be." She considered this. "What if Jacob hears, if word spreads that I'm here? Then he hears, and we deal with it when it comes." Elijah wiped his hands on his apron. "Can't live afraid of maybes, Clara. Has to be a point where you stop running and start standing." "I'm not running. I'm being careful." "There's a difference between careful and hiding." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "I understand just fine. You've been hurt, and you're protecting yourself. That's smart. But you can't protect yourself and build a life at the same time. Has to be one or the other." "And what life am I building here exactly?" The question came sharp. "Playing house with a man I barely know. Letting my children pretend we're a family when we're really just what temporary convenient. Is that what you think this is?" "I don't know what this is." Her voice rose, frustration bleeding through. "I don't know if I'm staying because it's safe or because I'm too tired to keep moving. I don't know if you're helping us because you're kind or because you're lonely. I don't know anything except that every time I start to settle, something in me screams to run." Elijah let her words hang there, let the emotion behind them burn itself out. "You done?" he asked quietly. "Yes, no. I don't know." He stepped closer, not touching, but present. "You want honesty? Here it is. I'm helping because I'm both kind and lonely. And maybe I'm hoping this becomes something more than temporary. But I'm not asking you to promise me anything. I'm just asking you to stop fighting yourself long enough to see what's actually here. And what's here? A home, if you want it. Not because you need it or because you're desperate, but because it's yours. Because you belong. Clara's eyes filled. I haven't belonged anywhere in so long. Well, you do now. She broke, then not loudly but completely turning into his chest as sobs shook her shoulders. Elijah held her awkward at first, then steadier his hands careful on her back. I'm scared, she whispered against his shirt. I'm so scared of wanting this. I know. What if it breaks? What if he takes them? Then we fight, and we keep fighting until there's nothing left to fight with. He pulled back enough to see her face. But we do it together. You're not alone anymore, Clara. Not unless you choose to be. She searched his eyes, looking for the lie, the crack, the inevitable betrayal. Found none. All right, she said finally. Sunday service. We'll go. It was a small step, but it was forward. Sunday came cold and bright. Clara dressed the children in their best clothes, which wasn't saying much. Patched, but clean, threadbare, but pressed. Sadie insisted on wearing a ribbon Elijah had bought from Martha's store, bright red against her dark hair. The church sat at the north end of town, white clapboard with a bell tower that leaned slightly left. By the time they arrived, most of the congregation was already seated. Elijah led them to a pew near the middle, close enough to be seen, but not so forward as to draw unnecessary attention. The whispers started immediately, not loud, but present a rustling susurrus of curiosity and judgment. Clara's spine straightened. Her hands clasped tight in her lap. Reverend Gray took the pulpit, surveyed his flock with the patient eye of a shepherd counting sheep. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome some new faces. Clara Hensley and her children, Finn, Theo, and Sadie. They've come west seeking a fresh start, and Elijah Cartwright has been kind enough to offer them shelter through the winter. He let that sit for a moment, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Now I've heard some talk around town. Speculation about propriety and appearances. He leaned forward slightly. So let me be clear. If you have concerns about Christian charity, you can take them up with Matthew 25:35. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. That's not a suggestion, folks. That's a commandment. A few people had the grace to look ashamed. Mrs. Henderson studied her hymnal with sudden intensity. Now then, Gray continued, let's talk about Luke 15 and the prodigal son. The service continued, but the message was clear. Clara and her children were under the church's protection, which in a town like Bitterroot Crossing meant something. Afterward, people approached slowly. Martha first loud and cheerful, making introductions. Then Dr. Samuel Wright, the town physician, who gave Clara his card and told her to call if the children needed anything. A few others followed, cautious, curious, but not unkind. Mrs. Henderson kept her distance. That went better than expected, Clara murmured as they walked home. Told you. People are decent mostly, just need permission to be. Finn ran ahead with the dog Theo and Sadie trailing behind. For a moment, they looked like any other family walking home from church. Ordinary, unremarkable, safe. Clara reached out and took Elijah's hand. He glanced at her, surprised. Thank you, she said simply. He squeezed her hand once. Anytime. They walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence, and when they reached the house, it felt like coming home. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara sat by the fire with Elijah's half-finished carving in her hands. What's this one? She asked. Not sure yet. Thought maybe a rabbit, or a fox. Can I try? He handed her the knife, showed her how to hold it, how to let the blade follow the grain. Her hands were unpracticed but steady, and she worked slowly, carefully. I used to draw, she said. Before the children, before Jacob. My father thought it was frivolous, but my mother encouraged it. Why'd you stop? Life got in the way. Survival takes up a lot of space. Doesn't have to anymore. She looked at him. Are you always this optimistic? No. Used to be downright miserable. You're a bad influence." She laughed, surprised, and the sound filled the room like light. Outside, winter held, but inside something warmer than fire was beginning to grow, and neither of them was quite ready to name it yet. But they felt it. In the quiet moments, and the shared work, and the way their lives had begun to weave together without permission or plan. They felt it. And for now, that was enough. January brought a cold so deep it made the walls crack and groan like old bones settling. Elijah woke one morning to find frost patterns on the inside of the windows, delicate as lace and twice as fragile. Clara was already up feeding the stove, her breath forming small clouds in the dim light. She'd taken to rising before dawn, moving through the house with quiet efficiency, as if stillness itself was a kind of prayer. "You don't have to do that," Elijah said, pulling on his boots. "I can manage the fire." "I know, but I'm awake anyway." She glanced at him, then away. Bad dreams. He didn't press. They both had those. Over breakfast, Finn announced his plan to build a snow fort big enough to hold all of them. Theo suggested they make it a castle instead, with towers and a moat. Sadie wanted windows so she could see out. Windows in a snow castle. Finn scoffed. "That's not how it works." "Why not?" Sadie's lower lip jutted out. "Sadie wants windows." "Because snow doesn't work that way, stupid." "Finn." Clara's voice cut sharp. "Don't call your sister that." "But she—" "I don't care. Apologize." The boy's face flushed red. "Sorry," he muttered, not looking at Sadie. "Say it like you mean it." Finn's jaw worked. For a moment, Elijah thought he might refuse. Then the boy turned to his sister, and something in his expression softened. "I'm sorry, Sadie. You can have windows if you want." The girl beamed. "Sadie forgives you." Crisis averted, they bundled up and headed outside, the dog bounding ahead through drifts that came up to its chest. Elijah watched them go, then turned to find Clara staring into her coffee cup, like it held answers. "He's getting harder to handle," she said quietly. "Finn, he's angry all the time now, and I don't know how to reach him." "He's 8. 8-year-old boys are angry at the world just for existing. It's more than that. He asks about Jacob constantly. Where is he? Why did he leave? When's he coming back?" She set the cup down with more force than necessary. "I don't know what to tell him anymore. The truth makes me sound bitter. Lies make me a coward." Elijah pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "What do you want to tell him?" "That his father is a selfish bastard who cared more about cards and whiskey than his own children. That I wasted 10 years believing he'd change. That we're better off without him." Her voice cracked slightly. "But how do I say that to a boy who still remembers the good days, who still thinks his father might come back and fix everything?" "You tell him the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth. Kids know when you're lying, and it makes them trust you less. And what's the age-appropriate version of your father abandoned us?" Elijah thought about that. About the lies adults told children to protect them, and how those lies usually caused more damage than the truth ever could. "You tell him his father made bad choices, that sometimes grown-ups aren't ready to be the people their families need them to be, and that it's not Finn's fault, or yours, or anybody's, except Jacob's." He leaned forward. "And you tell him that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who stay." Clara's eyes filled. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple." He reached across the table, stopped just short of touching her hand. "You want me to talk to him? Would you, if you think it'd help?" She nodded, relief washing over her face. "Thank you." He found Finn an hour later, sitting on a stump near the snow castle's half-built wall, throwing ice chunks at a tree with violent precision. "Mind if I sit?" Elijah asked. The boy shrugged. Elijah settled onto a log, gave it a moment. "Your mama tells me you've been asking about your father." Finn's throwing arm stilled. So I figured maybe you wanted to talk. Man to man. I'm not a man, I'm 8. Old enough to have questions, old enough to deserve real answers. Elijah picked up a stick, started whittling without looking at it. You remember much about him? Finn was quiet for a long moment. Then reluctantly. He used to let me sit on his shoulders, made me feel 10 feet tall, and he told stories, really good ones, about cowboys and outlaws and buried treasure. Sounds like he had his moments. Then why'd he leave? The words burst out, angry and aching. If he loved us, why'd he just go? Elijah set down his knife. Because loving someone and being able to take care of them are two different things. Your father, he probably did love you in his way, but he wasn't strong enough to do the hard work that love requires. That doesn't make sense. I know. But some people, they're good at the easy parts, the fun parts, stories and shoulders and making promises. But when things get hard, when there's no money or food or options, they fold, they run. It's not about you, Finn. It's about him not being brave enough. Mama says he's coming back. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But here's what I know, whether he comes back or not, you'll be all right. Because you've got your mama, and she's the strongest person I've ever met. And you've got Theo and Sadie, and... He hesitated, then pushed forward. You've got me if you want. Finn looked at him, eyes red-rimmed. You're not my father. No, I'm not. But I'm here. And I'm not leaving. Elijah held the boy's gaze. That's what matters, Finn. Not blood, not promises. Just showing up day after day, no matter what. The boy's face crumpled. I miss him. Even though he left us, even though I'm mad at him, I still miss him. That's allowed. You can be angry and sad at the same time. Those feelings don't cancel each other out. Finn nodded, swiping at his eyes with his sleeve. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the wind through the pines and the distant laughter of Theo and Sadie playing. Finally, Finn spoke. Mr. Eli. Yeah. If you're not leaving, does that mean we're staying for real? Elijah chose his words carefully. That's up to your mama, but I hope so. Me too. The admission came quiet, almost ashamed. Is that okay, to hope we stay? More than okay. It's smart. They went back to the castle after that, Finn throwing himself into the work with renewed energy. Elijah caught Clara watching from the window, her hand pressed to the glass. That night, after the children were asleep, she came to him. Finn told me what you said, about showing up. Hope that was all right. It was perfect. She sat beside him on the worn sofa, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. He's been lighter all day. Actually laughed at one of Theo's terrible jokes. Theo tells jokes. Badly. But yes. She smiled, then let it fade. Eli, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her tone made him straighten. All right. I got a letter yesterday, from my cousin in Montana City. Martha brought it with the mail. Clara pulled a folded paper from her pocket. She says she's back, has a house with extra rooms, says we're welcome any time. Elijah's chest tightened. That's good. That's what you wanted, isn't it? A place to go. It was. Before. She unfolded the letter, stared at it without reading. But now, I don't know what I want. Or maybe I do know, and that's what scares me. What scares you? Wanting to stay, letting myself imagine a life here. She finally looked at him. I've been telling myself this was temporary, that we'd leave in spring, start fresh somewhere no one knows our story. But the truth is, I don't want to leave. The children don't want to leave. We're happy here. Happier than I've been in years. Then stay. It's not that simple. Why not? Because Jacob's coming. She said it with absolute certainty. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. Someone will mention us to the wrong person, word will spread, and he'll show up with that smile and those promises, and And we'll handle it. You keep saying that. But you don't understand what he's like. He's convincing Eli. He'll tell people I stole his children, that I'm unstable, that he's been searching desperately. And they'll believe him because he knows exactly what to say. Elijah took the letter from her hands, set it aside. Then he took her hands in his calloused palm to calloused palm. Listen to me. I don't care how convincing he is. I don't care what story he tells. Those children are yours. You're the one who kept them alive, who walked through winter, who sacrificed everything. That's not a story. That's fact. And facts win eventually. You have more faith in justice than I do. I have faith in you, and in the people here. Martha, the Reverend Doc Wright, they've seen how you are with those kids. They know what's real. He squeezed her hands gently. But more than that, I have faith in us. Together. You're not fighting this alone anymore. Clara's breath shuddered. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, so stop. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just be here. With me. With them. Let yourself have this. And when it falls apart. If it falls apart, we'll deal with it then. But Clara. He waited until she met his eyes. What if it doesn't? What if this is actually the thing that works? She stared at him, something shifting behind her eyes. Fear giving way to possibility, hesitation to hope. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. How to just be happy without waiting for it to end. Neither do I, but maybe we can figure it out together. The kiss, when it came, surprised them both. Clara leaned forward first, tentative, giving him every chance to pull away. He didn't. Instead, he met her halfway, his hand coming up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. It was gentle, careful, weighted with all the things they hadn't yet said. When they broke apart, Clara's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. That was... Yeah. We should probably talk about it. Eventually. She smiled, shy and real. But maybe not right now. All right. They sat close after that, not speaking, just existing in the same space. Outside, the wind howled and the temperature dropped, and winter pressed against every window. But inside, warmth held. February arrived with a thaw that fooled everyone into thinking spring might come early. It didn't. Within a week, the cold returned meaner than before, bringing with it an ice storm that coated everything in crystal. Elijah was in the forge when Martha appeared, bundled so thick she looked twice her size. Need to talk, she said without preamble. Inside. He led her to the house. Clara was teaching Saudi letters at the table, but she looked up when they entered, sensing trouble in Martha's expression. What's wrong? Clara asked. Martha pulled out a chair, sat heavily. Had a stranger in the store this morning. Well-dressed, smooth-talking type. Asked if I knew anything about a woman traveling with 3 children. Clara went white. What did you tell him? Told him I see lots of folks passing through, couldn't say specifically. But Clara... Martha's face was grim. He knew details. Said the woman's name was Clara Hensley, that she'd run off with his children. Said he had legal papers, was looking to bring them home. Jacob. The name fell from Clara's lips like a stone. He asked where to find her. Elijah's voice was calm, but his hands had curled into fists. Not directly, but he was fishing. Asked about homesteads nearby who might take in travelers. Martha looked at Clara. I played dumb, but honey, he's not stupid. He'll ask around. Someone will talk. Mrs. Henderson. Clara's voice was hollow. She saw us at church. She'll tell him. Probably already has, Martha admitted. Emily can't resist feeling important, and a man like that, he'd know exactly how to butter her up. Elijah was already moving, pulling on his coat. I'll head into town. Find him before he finds us. No. Clara stood, her voice sharp. That's exactly what he wants. You confronting him gives him ammunition, makes him look like the victim. So what, we just wait? We prepare. She turned to Martha. Can you get Reverend Gray and Doc Wright? If Jacob shows up with papers, I want witnesses. People who can testify to what they've seen." Martha nodded. "Smart girl. I'll round them up." After she left, Clara began pacing her mind, working through scenarios. Elijah watched her, saw the fear warring with determination in her face. "Clara, he'll come at dusk," she said, not stopping her circuit of the room. "That's his style. Dramatic timing. He'll be charming at first, reasonable. He'll act hurt that I ran confused about why I'd keep his children from him. And then when charm doesn't work, he'll threaten. Legal action, accusations, whatever it takes." She finally stopped, meeting Elijah's eyes. "You need to keep the children inside when he comes. Don't let them see him until I've had a chance to talk to him first. I don't like you facing him alone." "I won't be alone. You'll be right there." "But Eli," her voice dropped, "promise me something. No matter what he says, no matter how he tries to provoke you, stay calm. Stay in control. That's how we win this." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her he'd throw Jacob off the property the moment he showed his face. But he saw the plea in her eyes, the desperate need for him to trust her judgment. "All right," he said finally. "We'll do it your way." She crossed to him, rose on her toes, and pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything." "We will." She said it with conviction she didn't quite feel. "We have to." The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Reverend Gray arrived first, solemn and steady. Doc Wright followed, bringing his medical bag out of habit. Martha came back with Sheriff Holland, who Elijah didn't entirely trust but who agreed to stay and observe. "Long as nobody breaks any laws," Holland said carefully. "I'm here to keep the peace, nothing more." "That's all we're asking," Clara assured him. By the time the sun started its descent, they were as ready as they could be. The children had been told to stay in the back room with strict instructions not to come out unless called. Finn had argued, but one look from his mother silenced him. Elijah stood near the forge, positioned where he could see the approach. His hammer rested within easy reach, just in case. The rider appeared just as the light turned gold. He came alone, sitting his horse like a man who'd been born in the saddle. Even from a distance, Elijah could see the care that had gone into his appearance: new coat, polished boots, hat set at just the right angle. Jacob Hensley dismounted, with theatrical grace, took a moment to brush dust from his sleeves, then approached the house with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no in his life. "Clara!" His voice rang out warm and delighted. "My God, Clara, is that really you?" She stepped onto the porch, Elijah beside her. Behind them in the doorway stood the witnesses. "Jacob," her voice was flat, "you shouldn't be here." "Shouldn't be?" He laughed, shaking his head in apparent disbelief. "Darling, I've been looking everywhere for you. When you didn't come back to the way station, I thought something terrible had happened." He moved closer, hand outstretched. "Thank God you're safe." "Don't." Clara's hand came up, stopping him. "Don't pretend. Not here. Not now." His expression shifted, hurt creeping in. "Pretend, Clara, what are you talking about? You left us. With $10 and a promise you knew you wouldn't keep." "I got delayed. There was a storm, the roads were impassable. For 2 months. I came back as soon as I could. But you were gone. Do you have any idea what I've been through, thinking you might be—" He broke off as if overcome. "Where are my children? Are they all right?" "They're fine. No thanks to you." Jacob's eyes hardened, just for a second, before the mask slipped back into place. "I want to see them." "No." "Clara, they're my children." "You gave up that right when you abandoned them." "I didn't abandon anyone." His voice rose, finally showing real emotion. "I made a mistake, I admit that. But I'm here now, aren't I? I'm trying to make it right. 2 months too late." He turned then, seeming to notice the audience for the first time. His gaze swept over the Reverend the doctor, the sheriff landing finally on Elijah. "And who's this, the man who's been keeping my wife?" "I'm not your wife anymore," Clara said. "Not in any way that matters." "The law might disagree." Jacob pulled papers from his coat. "I've got a writ here signed by a judge. Grants me temporary custody pending a formal hearing. So unless you want the sheriff to enforce it right now, I suggest you let me see my children." Holland shifted uncomfortably. "That true? You got legal papers?" Jacob handed them over. The sheriff read slowly, his expression growing troubled. "It's legitimate," Holland said reluctantly. "Signed 3 days ago in Bannock. Says the children are to be returned to paternal custody." "On what grounds?" Reverend Gray stepped forward. "That man abandoned his family. We have testimony." "And I have a judge's signature," Jacob interrupted smoothly. "Which I'm sorry to say, Reverend, carries more weight than testimony." "Not in God's court," Gray shot back. "Well, we're not in God's court, are we?" Jacob's smile was knife-thin. "We're in Montana territory where the law is clear. Children belong with their father unless proven otherwise." Clara's face had gone pale, but her voice stayed steady. "Then we'll prove otherwise. In a proper court with proper representation. By all means. But in the meantime—" He gestured toward the house. "I'll be taking them with me." "No." The word came from Elijah, quiet but absolute. Jacob turned to him, amusement flickering in his eyes. "I'm sorry. Who are you again?" "Elijah Cartwright. This is my property. And these are my children, unless you've adopted them." Jacob waited, knowing the answer. "No." "Then, with all due respect, Mr. Cartwright, this isn't your concern. It is when you're standing on my land making threats." "I'm not making threats. I'm exercising my legal rights." Jacob's tone was reasonable, patient, the voice of a man dealing with an unreasonable child. "Now, Clara, are you going to get the children, or do I need to involve the sheriff?" Holland cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I don't want to do this, but if those papers are legitimate, give us one night." Clara's voice cracked. "Please, let me prepare them. They haven't seen him in months, they're confused and scared. Just one night to explain things properly." Jacob considered this, clearly calculating his next move. "All right," he said finally. "One night. But I'll be at the boarding house in town, and I expect to see all 3 of them tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Don't make me come back here with legal force." He tipped his hat, mounted his horse with the same theatrical grace, and rode off. The moment he was out of sight, Clara's knees buckled. Elijah caught her holding her up as the witnesses crowded close. "We'll fight this," Gray said immediately. "I'll ride to Helena myself if I have to. There are judges there who actually care about justice." "That'll take weeks," Doc Wright said. "Maybe months. Then we buy time." Martha's face was fierce. "We make it as difficult as possible for him to take those children." "How?" Clara's voice was hollow. "He has the law. He has papers. What do we have?" "You have us," Elijah said firmly. "And we're not done fighting yet." But even as he said it, he could see the defeat settling into Clara's shoulders, the terrible knowledge that sometimes love and truth weren't enough. Sometimes the bastards won. That night, Clara told the children. They sat in a circle by the fire. Finn, Theo, Sadi, all of them looking at their mother with growing dread, as she explained that their father had returned, that he wanted to see them, that the law said he had rights. "Do we have to go?" Theo asked, his voice small. "I don't know yet, baby. We're trying to fight it." "I don't want to go." Sadi crawled into her mother's lap. "I want to stay with Mr. Eli." "Me too," Theo whispered. Finn said nothing, just stared into the fire, his jaw set in a way that reminded Elijah painfully of Clara. After the younger two had cried themselves to sleep, Finn remained. Clara tried to send him to bed, but he refused. "He's really taking us," the boy asked. He's trying, Clara said carefully. And we can't stop him. We're going to try everything we can. But probably not. Finn's voice was matter-of-fact, too old. Probably he wins because he's a man, and you're just a woman, and the law doesn't care what we want. Finn, it's true, isn't it? The boy looked at Elijah. You said facts win eventually, but that's not true. Sometimes the wrong people win just because they know how to work the system. Elijah crouched in front of him. You're right. Sometimes that happens, but not this time. How do you know? Because I won't let it. He said it with every ounce of conviction he possessed. Listen to me, Finn. Your father has papers, yes, but we have something stronger. We have the truth, and people who'll stand up for it. And if the law won't protect you, then we'll find another way. What way? Elijah looked at Clara. She stared back questions in her eyes. I don't know yet, he admitted. But I'll figure it out. That's a promise. After Finn finally went to bed, Clara and Elijah sat together in the dark. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep, she said softly. I'll keep it. How the law is on his side. Then we'll change the law. Or work around it. Or... He stopped, an idea forming. Unless it's not on his side at all. What do you mean? Those papers. Jacob said they were signed 3 days ago in Bannock. That's a week's ride from here at least. But he showed up today. Understanding dawned in Clara's eyes. The timing doesn't work. Not unless he had those papers before he started looking, which means he knew where we were, or at least where to look. Her voice hardened. Someone told him. Mrs. Henderson. Has to be. She's the only one who'd be petty enough. Clara stood pacing now with renewed energy. But if Jacob had papers before he found us, that means he filed for custody without knowing our location. Which means he lied to the judge. Elijah finished. Claimed you kidnapped the children, probably. Gave some false address. It's fraud. It's leverage. They stared at each other, hope flickering back to life. We need proof, Clara said. The original filing documents. If we can show the judge that Jacob lied, then the writ is invalid, and we're back to square one. Him with no legal standing, and us with a community full of witnesses. Elijah grabbed his coat. I'm riding to Bannock. Now it's the middle of the night. Then I'll ride fast. If I leave now, I can be there by tomorrow afternoon. File for the documents, ride back. He pulled her close. Buy me 3 days. Can you do that? I'll try. Try hard. He kissed her forehead. I'm not losing you. Any of you. He saddled his horse in the dark packed light and rode out under a sky studded with stars that cared nothing for human troubles. Behind him, Clara stood in the doorway watching until he disappeared into the night. And in the back room, Finn lay awake listening, learning what it meant when someone loved you enough to ride into the dark without hesitation. Learning what showing up actually looked like. Morning came too fast and brought Jacob with it. Clara heard the horse before she saw it, that particular rhythm of hooves on frozen ground that meant trouble was arriving right on schedule. She'd been awake all night, pacing the floor, rehearsing arguments that sounded strong in her head but felt paper-thin in her mouth. The children were still asleep. She wanted to keep them that way, to preserve one more hour of peace before the world came crashing in. But Finn was already stirring, his eyes opening with the wary alertness of a child who'd learned to sleep light. He's here, isn't he? The boy said. Yes. Where's Mr. Eli? He had to go take care of something. He'll be back soon. She hoped that was true. Prayed it was true. Finn sat up, pulling his knees to his chest. I don't want to see him. I know, baby. Don't call me baby. I'm not a baby. His voice cracked on the words, betraying exactly how young he still was. Clara sat on the edge of his bed, brushing hair back from his forehead. You're my baby. You'll always be my baby, even when you're grown with children of your own. Mama, listen to me. She took his face in her hands. Whatever happens today, whatever your father says or does, remember this. You are mine. You and Theo and Sadi. You belong to me because I chose you every single day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Finn's eyes filled. What if he takes us anyway? Then I'll come get you. I'll fight until there's nothing left to fight with. She kissed his forehead. But it's not over yet. We still have cards to play. The knock came hard and impatient. Clara steeled herself, checked that the younger two were still sleeping, and went to face her past. Jacob stood on the porch looking fresh and rested like a man who'd spent the night in comfort while she'd worn tracks in the floor. Behind him stood Sheriff Holland, looking decidedly uncomfortable, and two men Clara didn't recognize, hired muscle probably in case things went poorly. Morning, Clara. Jacob's smile was warm practiced. Sleep well. What do you want, Jacob? You know what I want. 10 o'clock, remember, time to collect my children. They're not ready. Well, that's unfortunate. But we had an agreement. He gestured to Holland. Sheriff, if you would. Holland stepped forward reluctantly. Ma'am, I don't like this any more than you do, but the law's the law. Unless Mr. Cartwright returns with evidence that invalidates those papers, I have to enforce the writ. Cartwright? Jacob's eyebrows rose. Where is your guard dog, Clara? Did he abandon you too? He's handling business. He'll be back. When? Soon. Jacob laughed, not unkindly. You're stalling. I respect that I do. But sweetheart, I'm not a patient man, and I've been more than generous already. He moved toward the door. So let's make this easy. Get the children, say your goodbyes, and we can all move forward like civilized people. Clara blocked his path. You're not taking them. I'm not asking permission. Then you'll have to go through me. Something flickered in Jacob's eyes, irritation maybe, or respect for her audacity. Don't be dramatic. This doesn't have to be ugly. You made it ugly when you left us to die. I explained that. It was a mistake, a miscalculation. I'm trying to make amends. Amends? Clara's voice rose despite herself. You want to make amends? Then leave. Sign over custody, walk away, and let us build a life without you hanging over our heads like a threat. They're my children, Clara? No. They're children you fathered. There's a difference. She crossed her arms. You want them. Tell me why. Tell me one reason that isn't about money or appearances or whatever scheme you're running. Jacob's mask slipped slightly. Careful. You're making accusations you can't prove. Am I? Then why the sudden interest? Why now after 2 months of silence? What changed Jacob? He studied her, calculating. Then he smiled, and it was the smile she remembered from their early days, charming and dangerous in equal measure. You always were smart. Too smart for your own good. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Here's the truth. I got in deep with some men in Butte. Men who don't take kindly to unpaid debts. They want their money, and I need to look respectable to get it. Family man settled down, ready to invest in legitimate business. So you're using them, again. I'm providing for them. There's a difference. His tone turned harder. And before you get righteous, remember who kept a roof over their heads for 8 years. Who put food on the table when you were too busy playing school teacher to notice we were broke. I noticed. I just didn't know you were gambling it all away. Ancient history. He straightened, raising his voice for the audience. Sheriff, I'm done negotiating. Either she produces the children willingly, or we go in and get them. Holland shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. Clara felt the ground shifting beneath her feet, the terrible inevitability of losing this fight. Elijah wasn't back yet, might not make it back in time, and she had no more moves to play. Then Finn appeared in the doorway. I'll go. Every head turned. The boy stood there in his nightshirt, face pale but set, looking far older than 8. "Finn, no," Clara started. "I'll go with him," Finn repeated, voice steady. "But Theo and Sadie stay. That's the deal." Jacob blinked clearly, not expecting this. "Son, that's not how this works. All 3 of you." "No." Finn stepped forward. "You want kids for show. You only need 1. Take me. Leave them." "Finn, stop." Clara's voice broke. But the boy kept going, walking right up to his father, with the kind of courage that came from having nothing left to lose. "I'm the oldest. I remember you best. I can pretend we're a happy family if that's what you need. But they're little. They're scared. Leave them with Mama." Jacob stared at his son, something unreadable crossing his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. "You'd do that?" he asked quietly. "Trade yourself for them?" "Yes." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Jacob crouched to Finn's level, and when he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost human. "You're braver than I was at your age, braver than I am now, probably." He glanced at Clara. "He gets that from you." "Jacob." "No, let me finish." He turned back to Finn. "I'm not a good man, son. Your mother knows it. I know it, and deep down you probably know it too. I make bad choices. I run when things get hard. I let people down." He paused. "But I'm trying. Maybe not for the right reasons, but I'm trying." "Then prove it," Finn said. "Leave us alone." Jacob stood, his expression conflicted. The mask had slipped entirely now, leaving behind something raw and complicated. "I can't. I wish I could, but I can't. Those men in Butte, they're not the forgiving type." He looked at Holland. "Sheriff, let's go ahead and—" "Wait." The voice came from behind them. Everyone turned to see Martha Cooper marching up the path, Reverend Gray beside her, and behind them, Mrs. Emily Henderson, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Before you take those children," Martha announced, "Mrs. Henderson has something to say." Emily's face was pinched with shame. I may have acted hastily." "She told you where to find them?" Clara said flatly. "Didn't she?" Jacob's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "I thought I was doing right." Emily said the words clearly costing her. A father looking for his children, it seemed Christian to help. But then I heard what really happened. How you left them. She looked at Jacob with undisguised disgust. "I was wrong, and I'm sorry." "Touching," Jacob said. "But it doesn't change the legal facts." "Actually, it might." Gray stepped forward. "You see, Mrs. Henderson told me something interesting. When you came to her asking about Clara, you said you'd been searching for 3 weeks. But those papers you showed the sheriff filed 3 days ago. So either you're a time traveler, or you lied to the judge about the timeline." Jacob's expression hardened. "Careful, Reverend. I'm just stating facts. Facts that any judge would find interesting, don't you think? Especially if we can prove you knew where Clara was before filing that writ. You can't prove anything. Can't I? Because Mrs. Henderson here is willing to testify about the exact date and time of your conversation. And funny thing, it was 5 days ago. 2 days before you supposedly filed those papers in Bannock." Gray's smile was thin. "That's a fast horse you've got to make a week's journey in 2 days." The silence that followed was electric. Holland was the first to speak. "Mr. Hensley, is this true?" "Of course not. The Reverend is confused about dates." "I'm not confused," Gray interrupted. "And I've got witnesses. Half the town saw you in the general store that day." Jacob's facade cracked completely. "This is ridiculous. Some misunderstanding about timing doesn't invalidate—" "Actually, it might." Holland pulled out the papers, studying them with new scrutiny. "If you filed for custody claiming you didn't know their location, but you actually did know, that's fraud. Makes the writ invalid." On a technicality. Laws made of technicalities, Mr. Hensley. The sheriff's voice had gone cold, and I don't take kindly to being made a fool of. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to ride back to Bannock, explain to that judge what you did, and let him decide if he wants to pursue charges for filing false statements. You can't seriously... I'm dead serious. And if you're smart, you'll go quietly. Holland's hand rested on his gun, not threateningly, but noticeably. Otherwise, I might remember some outstanding warrants I've heard about. Something about unpaid gambling debts in Butte. Jacob went very still. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment, Jacob looked like he might argue. Then his shoulders sagged, and Clara saw something she'd never seen before: defeat. Fine. He turned to Clara. You win. For now. This isn't about winning, she said quietly. It's about what's right. Keep telling yourself that. But the venom was gone from his voice, replaced by bone-deep weariness. He looked at Finn, still standing brave and small in the doorway. You really would have come with me, to protect them. Finn nodded. You're a better man than I'll ever be. Jacob's voice cracked slightly. Take care of them. All of them. Then he mounted his horse and rode off, the hired men following. They watched until he disappeared into the tree line. The moment he was gone, Clara's knees buckled. Martha caught her, holding her up as sobs finally broke free, relief and fear and exhaustion all pouring out at once. You're all right, Martha murmured. You're safe now. Is it over? Clara gasped. Is it really over? For now, Holland said carefully. But ma'am, you should file for legal custody, proper papers. Make it official so he can't try this again. I will. I'll do whatever it takes. Gray cleared his throat. There's another option. If you were to remarry, the legal complications would disappear entirely. A stable household, 2 parents. I'm not marrying someone just for legal protection, Clara said firmly. I wasn't suggesting convenience, Gray said gently. I was suggesting you marry someone you've already built a life with. Someone who rode through the night to find evidence to protect you. Clara looked up sharply. Eli's back? Not yet. But he will be. And when he is. Gray smiled. Well, just something to consider. After they left, Clara gathered the children close. Theo and Sadie had woken during the confrontation, watched from the window with wide, frightened eyes. Now they clung to her, reassuring themselves she was real and present. Is the bad man gone? Sadie whispered. Yes, baby. He's gone. For good. I think so. I hope so. Finn stood apart, arms wrapped around himself. Clara reached out, pulled him into the embrace. You were so brave, she said. So incredibly brave. I was scared. That's what makes it brave. Doing the right thing even when you're terrified. She kissed the top of his head. I'm proud of you. So proud. Will Mr. Eli come back? Yes, he promised, didn't he? And Mr. Eli keeps his promises. They spent the rest of the morning in quiet activities, letting the tension drain slowly from their bodies. Clara baked bread because she needed something to do with her hands. The children played with the dog, their laughter gradually returning, tentative at first, then stronger. By afternoon, worry had begun to creep back in. Eli should have been back by now. Even if the ride to Bannock took longer than expected, he should have hoofbeats. Clara's heart leapt. She ran to the door, threw it open, and there he was, exhausted, covered in trail dust, but whole, and present, and real. Eli dismounted before his horse, fully stopped, stumbled slightly from stiffness and caught himself. His eyes found hers immediately. Did he started. He's gone. The Reverend found a way. He's gone. The relief that washed over Eli's face was profound. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry." "You were here. You've been here the whole time." She pulled back to look at him. "Did you find it? The evidence?" "Better." He pulled papers from his coat. Original filing documents. Jacob claimed he was in Butte when he filed said you'd kidnapped the children and fled to Canada. Complete fabrication. Judge was livid when I showed him the discrepancies. So it's really over. The writ's been rescinded, and the judge issued a new order full custody to you pending a formal hearing. But given the circumstances, he said it's just a formality. Eli's smile was tired, but genuine. "You're safe, Clara, all of you." She kissed him, then not caring who might see, not caring about propriety or timing or anything except the overwhelming relief of having him back. When they broke apart, Finn was standing in the doorway. "You came back," the boy said. "Told you I would." "You kept your promise." "Always will." Eli crouched, bringing himself to Finn's level. "How you holding up?" "Better now." Finn hesitated, then threw himself at Eli's arms, wrapping tight around his neck. "Thank you for saving us." Eli held him, his eyes closing briefly against the weight of emotion. "You saved yourselves. I just helped a little." That evening, after the children were finally asleep, really asleep, not the fitful half-rest of the past few nights, Clara and Eli sat by the fire. "Reverend Gray suggested something today," she said carefully. "What's that?" "He said if we were married, it would solve the legal complications. No question of custody or stability." Eli was quiet for a moment. "What do you think about that?" "I think he's probably right, practically speaking." She turned to face him. "But I don't want to marry you for practical reasons, Eli." "No. No. If I marry you, it'll be because I want to, because I choose to, not because I'm scared or desperate or trying to protect my children." Her voice softened. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between them, finally spoken after weeks of dancing around them. Eli reached out, took her hand. "I love you too. Have for a while now, I think. Maybe since that first night when you fell through my door looking half dead, but still fierce enough to fight." "I looked terrible." "You looked alive, and you made me feel alive for the first time in 3 years." He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "So here's what I'm thinking. We wait. Give it time. Let the dust settle. Make sure this is real and not just adrenaline and relief. And then I'll ask you properly, with a ring and everything." He smiled. "If you'll have me." "I'll have you," she said softly. "But you're right. We should wait. Do this right." They sat close, watching the fire burn down to embers, both knowing they'd just made a promise more binding than any legal document. The next few weeks passed in cautious peace. Word spread through town about Jacob's attempted deception, and public opinion shifted firmly in Clara's favor. Even Mrs. Henderson made a point of apologizing publicly, though Clara suspected Martha had strong-armed her into it. The formal custody hearing came and went without incident. The judge awarded Clara full legal guardianship, noting for the record that a mother who walks through winter to keep her children alive has proven her fitness beyond doubt. Jacob didn't contest it. Rumor had it he'd left Montana Territory entirely, though nobody knew where he'd gone. Clara found she didn't care. He was gone, and that was enough. Life settled into new rhythms. Finn continued his apprenticeship with Eli, showing real aptitude for metalwork. Theo slowly came out of his shell, revealing a dry wit that caught everyone by surprise. Sadie had claimed Eli as hers with the possessive certainty of a 4-year-old, often climbing into his lap during evening stories and announcing, "This is Sadie's Mr. Eli." Spring came slowly then all at once. Snow melted, revealing brown grass that would green by May. Birds returned, filling the mornings with sound. The creek, frozen silent all winter, began to sing again. On a Sunday in early March, Eli took Clara for a walk. They left the children with Martha, who'd become something of an honorary grandmother, and headed up the ridge behind Eli's property. The ground was muddy, the air still cold, but there was a softness to it that promised warmth. At the top of the ridge, Eli stopped. "Remember when I said I'd ask you properly?" he said. Clara's heart skipped. "Eli, just listen." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple gold, with a small stone clearly handmade. "I forged this myself. Took me 3 tries to get it right. Margaret's was silver, so this is different. Its own thing. For us." He got down on one knee right there in the mud and melting snow, and looked up at her with eyes that held everything they'd been through. "Clara Hensley, you're the strongest, most stubborn, most magnificent woman I've ever known. You make me want to be better. You make me believe in futures I'd given up on. And I love you, not because you need saving, but because you don't. Because you're complete on your own, and you're choosing to share your life with me anyway." He took a breath. "Will you marry me?" Clara was crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. "Yes, God, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, and stood pulling her into a kiss that tasted like salt and promise. When they finally broke apart, Clara was laughing through her tears. "The children are going to be insufferable about this. Sadi's been planning our wedding for weeks." "Has she?" "She has opinions about flowers. Many opinions." Eli grinned. "Then I guess we better let her help plan it." They walked back hand in hand, the future spreading before them, like the valley below, vast and unknown and full of possibility. Behind them, the past faded into shadows. Ahead, home waited. And this time, Clara wasn't running toward it out of desperation. She was walking toward it by choice. With a man who'd shown her that love wasn't about rescue or dependence. It was about partnership, about showing up, about choosing each other day after day through winter's hardest cold and spring's uncertain thaw, about building something real from the broken pieces of what came before. And that Clara thought as they crested the hill and saw the house below, smoke rising from the chimney, children's laughter drifting up, that was worth everything. The children found out before they made it back to the house. Sadi saw the ring first, her sharp 4-year-old eyes catching the glint of gold as Clara reached for the door handle. The girl let out a shriek that brought Finn and Theo running. "Mama's got a ring! Mr. Eli gave Mama a ring! Does that mean—" Finn stopped, looking between them with cautious hope. "Are you getting married?" Clara glanced at Eli, saw him nod, and turned back to her son. "Yes, if that's all right with you." "All right." Finn's face split into a grin so wide it looked painful. That's all right." Theo said nothing, just walked over and hugged Eli around the waist, holding on tight. The man's hand came down to rest on the boy's head, gentle and sure. Sadi was already spinning in circles, her voice rising in pitch. "Sadi's getting a papa, a real papa. Can Sadi call you papa now?" Eli crouched down to her level. "If you want to." "Sadi wants to." She threw her arms around his neck. "Papa Eli, that sounds nice." "It does," he agreed, his voice rough with emotion. Martha appeared in the doorway, took one look at them all, and smiled knowingly. "Well, I guess I better start planning a wedding." "Sadi's already planning," the girl announced. "Sadi wants yellow flowers and cake, big cake." "Yellow flowers and big cake," Martha repeated solemnly. "Got it. Anything else?" "Can the dog be there?" "Absolutely not," Clara said, then softened at her daughter's pout. "We'll see." The dog would definitely be there. News spread through Bitterroot Crossing faster than wildfire. By the time they walked into church that Sunday, half the town was already congratulating them. Reverend Gray announced it from the pulpit, his voice warm with genuine pleasure. "We'll be celebrating the marriage of Elijah Cartwright and Clara Hensley 3 weeks from today. All are welcome to witness as these 2 souls join in holy matrimony." Mrs. Henderson actually smiled, though it looked like it pained her. Progress, Clara thought. After the service, women descended with offers of help. Mrs. Davies would make the cake. Young Sarah Miller offered to pick flowers. Even the usually taciturn Doc Wright promised to play fiddle at the reception. "Told you," Martha said smugly. "Community takes care of its own." Clara felt the truth of it settling into her bones. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she belonged somewhere. Not because she'd forced herself to fit, but because she'd been welcomed as she was, broken pieces and all. That afternoon, while the children played outside, Eli and Clara sat at the kitchen table with paper and pencil, trying to figure out the practical details. "We could do it here," Eli suggested, "in front of the house. Weather should be decent by then." "Or at the church," Clara countered. "More traditional." "Traditional's never been my strong suit." "No," she smiled. "No, it hasn't." They settled on the house. It felt right making vows in the place where they'd built their life together, where the children had learned to feel safe again. "What about after?" Eli asked. "After the wedding? Do we need to change anything? Add rooms?" Clara looked around the space that had become home. "The children are comfortable where they are, and we—" She felt heat rise in her cheeks. "We'll figure it out." Eli's eyes warmed with understanding and something deeper. "Yeah, we will." The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Clara made herself a new dress with fabric Martha had ordered special from Helena, simple cream muslin, nothing fancy but new and hers, and chosen with joy instead of desperation. Sadi insisted on helping, which meant more hindrance than help, but Clara didn't mind. The girl's running commentary kept her grounded when anxiety threatened to creep in. "Mama looks like a princess. Papa Eli's gonna cry when he sees Mama." "Your papa doesn't cry, sweetheart. He will. Happy crying's different than sad crying." Out of the mouths of babes. Finn spent his days helping Eli prepare the yard, setting up benches borrowed from the church building, a simple arch from pine branches. The boy worked with focus that bordered on obsessive, needing everything perfect. "It doesn't have to be perfect," Eli told him one afternoon, watching Finn adjust a bench for the third time. "Yes, it does. Mama deserves perfect." Eli set down his hammer. "Come here." Finn approached warily. "Your mama deserves happy. That's different from perfect. Perfect doesn't exist, but happy that we can do." He put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "This wedding, it's not just about me and your mama. It's about all of us becoming a family officially. You, me, Theo, Sadi, your mama, all together. That's what matters. Will you adopt us legally?" The question caught Eli off guard. "Do you want me to?" "I want your name. I want to be Finn Cartwright instead of Finn Hensley. I want people to know you're my—" He stopped the word, catching. "My father." Eli's eyes stung. "Then we'll make it legal. Soon as the wedding's done, we'll file the papers. You'll be Finn Cartwright. All of you will." The boy's smile was tremulous but real. "Good. That's good." 2 days before the wedding, a rider came. Eli was in the forge when he heard the horse, looked up to see a stranger dismounting, older man, well-dressed with the bearing of someone used to authority. Behind him rode Sheriff Holland, which made Eli's stomach clench. "Mr. Cartwright," the stranger called. "That's me. Judge Cornelius Blackwood. We met briefly during Mrs. Hensley's custody hearing." He didn't offer his hand, just surveyed Eli with sharp eyes. "May I speak with you and Mrs. Hensley? It's important." Clara appeared in the doorway, alerted by voices. Her face went pale when she saw the judge. "It's all right," Holland said quickly. "Nothing bad. Judge has news." They gathered in the kitchen, awkward and tense. Blackwood accepted coffee but didn't drink it, just held the cup while he spoke. "Jacob Hensley is dead." The words landed like stones in still water. Clara's cup rattled against its saucer. "When?" she asked, voice carefully neutral. "Week ago, in Butte. Seems those gambling debts caught up with him." Blackwood's expression was grim. He was found in an alley, quick from what the sheriff there said. Didn't suffer. Clara said nothing, just stared at her hands. I'm sorry to bring bad news so close to your happy occasion, Blackwood continued. But there are legal considerations. As his widow, you're entitled to settle his estate such as it is. I don't want anything from him. There's not much to want, some debts, a few personal effects. But there is one thing. He pulled a sealed envelope from his coat. He left this. Asked that it be delivered to you in the event of his death. Clara took it like it might bite. Thank you. After Blackwood and Holland left, she sat staring at the envelope for a long time. Eli waited, letting her work through whatever she needed to work through. Finally, she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, Jacob's familiar scrawl covering half the page. She read it silently, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she set it down and looked at Eli. He says he's sorry, that he knows it doesn't fix anything, but he needed to say it. Her voice was flat. He says the children deserve better than him, and that he's glad they found you. How do you feel? I don't know. Sad, maybe. Or relieved. Or guilty for feeling relieved. She picked up the letter again, stared at it. He wasn't always terrible. That's what makes it complicated. If he'd been a monster from the start, it would be easier to hate him. But he was kind sometimes, funny. He loved the children in his way. His way wasn't enough. No, it wasn't. She folded the letter carefully, tucked it back in the envelope. Should I tell them, the children? Eli considered that. Finn deserves to know. The younger two maybe wait until they're older. You're probably right. She stood, paced to the window. It's strange. I spent so long being afraid of him coming back, and now he can't. Ever. And I feel free? Yes. And terrible for feeling free about someone's death. He made his choices, Clara. You're not responsible for the consequences. Eli came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Mourn if you need to, or don't. Whatever you feel is valid. She leaned back into him. What would I do without you? Good thing you won't have to find out. They told Finn that evening after Theo and Sadie were asleep. The boy took it quietly, processing in that internal way of his. Does this mean he's not coming back ever? Yes, Clara said gently. He's gone. Finn nodded slowly. I think part of me was always waiting, even after everything I thought maybe. He trailed off. But now I can stop waiting. Yes, baby, now you can stop. I'm not sad, Finn said, sounding guilty. Should I be sad? You feel however you feel. There's no should about it. The boy thought about that. I'm sad he wasn't better. I'm sad he couldn't be what we needed. But I'm not sad he's gone. Does that make me bad? No. Eli's voice was firm. That makes you honest. And honest is always better than pretend. Finn nodded, satisfied. Can I still take your name, even though he's dead? Especially because he's dead. You're mine now, officially. Good. The boy stood, moved toward his room, then paused. Mr. Eli, thank you. For being what he couldn't be. After he left, Clara wept quietly, and Eli held her, understanding that sometimes grief was complicated and non-linear, and didn't make sense even to the person feeling it. The wedding day dawned clear and warm, the kind of spring morning that felt like a gift. Clara woke early, nerves and excitement tangling in her stomach. Martha arrived before breakfast with an army of women bearing food and flowers and determined cheerfulness. Out, Martha ordered Eli. Groom doesn't see the bride before the ceremony. It's bad luck. We're already getting married in my house. Pretty sure we've broken plenty of traditions. Out. He went, taking Finn and Theo with him to the forge, where Doc Wright and Reverend Gray were waiting to help him get ready, which apparently meant drinking coffee and giving unwanted advice. Don't lock your knees during the ceremony, Doc warned. Seen more than one groom faint. I'm not going to faint. That's what they all say. Just speak from the heart, Gray advised. The words don't have to be fancy. They just have to be true. Eli thought about that. About truth and love and all the ways he'd failed to speak either for 3 long years. Today, he'd do better. By mid-afternoon, the yard was transformed. Yellow flowers. Sadi's choice decorated every surface. Benches lined the makeshift aisle. The arch Finn had built was wreathed in pine and ribbon. Guests began arriving. The whole town seemed like everyone in their Sunday best faces, bright with genuine happiness. Eli stood under the arch with Gray, his hands sweating despite the cool breeze. Finn stood beside him, as his best man, looking proud and nervous in his new shirt. You ready? The boy whispered. More than ready. The music started Doc's fiddle playing something simple and sweet. The crowd turned. First came Theo carrying a pillow with the rings. Then Sadi scattering flower petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy, the dog trotting beside her despite Clara's earlier protests. And then Clara. She appeared in the doorway backlit by afternoon sun, and Eli forgot how to breathe. Sadi had been right. He was going to cry. Clara walked toward him without anyone to give her away, because she didn't need giving. She was choosing him of her own free and sovereign will. When she reached the arch, she looked up at him with eyes that held everything love and trust, and the promise of tomorrow. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. Gray cleared his throat, a smile tugging at his lips. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Eli barely heard the words. He was too focused on Clara's face, on the way the sunlight caught in her hair, on the small smile playing at her lips. Elijah, do you take this woman? I do. Gray blinked. I haven't finished the question. Don't care. Answer's still yes. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Clara's smile widened. Very well. Clara, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, as long as you both shall live? I do. Her voice was clear and strong. Absolutely I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Montana and the grace of God, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Eli, you may. He was already kissing her, pulling her close, as the crowd erupted in cheers. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Sadi was tugging on Eli's coat. Now you're really our papa forever and ever. Forever and ever, he agreed, scooping her up. The celebration lasted well into evening. There was dancing and food and more laughter than Eli had heard in years. The children ran wild with the other kids, high on cake and freedom. Martha cried openly, not bothering to hide it. As the sun set and guests began drifting home, Eli and Clara found themselves alone for a moment, standing at the edge of the yard watching their children play. How you feeling? He asked. Happy, scared, grateful, all of it. She leaned into him. You? Same. Mostly just glad you're stuck with me now. I was stuck with you already. The wedding was just paperwork. Important paperwork. The most important. She turned to face him fully. Thank you, Eli, for seeing us, for staying, for showing me that not all men run when things get hard. Thank you for letting me stay, for trusting me with them. With you. He kissed her forehead. We're going to be good at this whole family thing. Yeah, we are. Finn appeared at their side, Theo and Sadi trailing behind. Mama, can we stay up late, since it's a special day? Clara looked at Eli. He shrugged. Why not special day rules apply? They built a fire in the yard and sat around it as stars emerged one by one. Theo leaned against Eli's side. Sadi was already drowsing in Clara's lap. Finn poked at the fire with a stick, his young face thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" Eli asked him. "How different everything is from a year ago. How scared we were. How hungry." He looked up. "And how now we're not. Scared or hungry. You feel safe here." "Yeah, I do. We all do." Finn smiled. "We're home." Those two words settled into Eli's chest, warm and solid as the fire between them. Home. Not a place. Not four walls and a roof. But these people, this love, this choosing each other again and again. Clara's hand found his in the darkness, squeezed once. He squeezed back. Around them the night deepened. Inside the house, the lamp still burned in the window, a beacon for anyone who might need shelter, might need hope, might need to know that kindness still existed in a hard world. And tomorrow would come, with its own challenges, its own joys and sorrows and ordinary miracles. But tonight they were simply this, a family forged not from blood or obligation, but from choice and courage and the stubborn refusal to let winter win. Tonight they were home. And that was everything. Years later, long after the children were grown with children of their own, people would still tell the story of the widow who walked through winter with 3 small souls, and the blacksmith who opened his door when he didn't have to. They'd tell it at gatherings and around fires, a reminder that sometimes the best families are the ones we build from broken pieces. That love isn't always lightning. Sometimes it's the steady warmth of a well-tended fire. That showing up matters more than grand gestures. That second chances are real if you're brave enough to reach for them. And that home isn't where you start. It's where you choose to stay.